recording for the lab for week 3, Introduction to ASTA Power Project. So last week we were working on Visio, which again, as we talked about, is not a scheduling software. It's more of a presentation software to show flowcharts, show diagrams, and we use that to create a WBS structure and an activity on Note. This week, we're going to start working on the scheduling software that we're going to be using throughout the semester. The scheduling software that we're going to be using is ASTA Power Project. Is it the only scheduling software available? No, there are multiple scheduling softwares, each have their pros and cons. Some examples of the most popular scheduling softwares are ASTA Power Project, the one that we're going to be using, Primavera P6, one of the most popular scheduling softwares, MS Project, and I've had the chance to work on all 3 of them. And I can tell you that ASTA is very user-friendly. The interface is very familiar, which makes it easy to understand because you already know that interface and you've seen it before. And that what makes it quicker to learn than P6 because P6 has a more of a complicated interface. It uses Oracle interface. So for first-time users, it takes them a little bit of time to get accustomed to that interface. But with Asta, we don't have that. You can see here some of the advantages or the pros of Asta, but filtering options, we can have filter options in P6 as well. How easy it is to get that filters might be different from one software to another. Um, so I find it easier to manage multiple projects and updating complex projects on P6. So each software has its pros and cons. So as we were saying, AST is very user-friendly. First-time users get accustomed to it faster. P6, I would use it in more complex projects or if I'm managing multiple projects at the same time. Microsoft Project is very user-friendly as well. The interface is similar to all the Microsoft applications that you use on everyday basis, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint. So it's going to be so easy to go through the software because the familiar is already familiar. But from my personal experience, I would not use Microsoft Project for complex projects, big projects, or projects with a lot of number of activities or tasks. It's hard to manage, and there are a little bit of features with Microsoft Project that makes it not the best for updating. And we're gonna go through that when we work on our Microsoft Project session. So we have a separate session for Microsoft Project, and you're gonna see that also when we start updating. You're gonna get a feeling of what makes a software good at updating or not. So what are we trying to do now? We will start building a schedule. Okay, so that's the exercise that we have for today's. That's our first time creating a schedule on Astapar project. So we're gonna have a small exercise. So and before we start even working on that exercise or you even start opening your uh, application or your software, you need to know the requirements of your project and definitely like the scope of the activities. So all of that you need to set and understand and determine before you open your before you open your software. So you need to know what is the start date of the project, what is the calendar of the project, definitely what is the name of the project, all the activities, all the WBS that we worked on the previous week, everything needs to be determined before opening the software or start working on the software. So why am I saying this? Scheduling softwares will not create the schedule for you. What does that mean? Something we always say is garbage in is garbage out. What does that mean? The scheduling software will not just create a schedule out of nothing. You need to add all the activities, you need to add the durations, you need to add the logic between the tasks. Okay? So if you entered any of these information wrong, you didn't enter the correct durations, you didn't enter the correct logic, sequence, links, then you get a wrong finish date. You get a wrong schedule. So garbage in is garbage out. So whatever you enter and how accurate the information that you have about the project and how confident you are in your activity list, your durations, your logic is what gets you a better, more accurate schedule. And that's what we always want to achieve, an accurate as possible schedule that mimics what will happen in the project and has the ability to adapt with the changes of the project along the way. So we can say that scheduling softwares are, and that is for everything, like not just ASTA, P6, Microsoft Project, any scheduling software is more of your calculator. Okay, so if you enter the wrong calculations or figures, you get a wrong answer. Same with that. You enter the wrong durations, you get a wrong finish date. Enter the wrong logic, you get a wrong finish date. So that's why we always say the first step is check what are your activities, what are your durations, what are the requirements of the project, what is the calendar of the project, the start date of the project. All of that needs to be determined even before we start working on the software. Okay, so we had a bit of introduction. Now we understand what we need to have. So let's look at the requirements of the project that we have. So that's the requirements for the exercise. So that's the name of our project, that's the start date, that's the calendar, and these are some of the things and the features that we're going to be working on during the exercise. So let's start step by step. So the first step is opening ASTA, our project. So I'm going to go type in ASTA, our project. Takes a little time. Okay, first thing we're always gonna do, the first like 4 or 5 steps, we're gonna keep repeating every time we're gonna create a schedule, whether in any of our in-lab exercises or for the project. So the first step is always choosing new. We're gonna choose a new file. We're always going to choose a construction template. We're not going to be using any of the other templates throughout the semester in any of our in-lab exercises or the project, just for the sake of consistency. So does that mean that you cannot explore or look at any other template? Yeah, you're free to do that. But for all our in-lab exercises, we're only going to be using the construction template. Again, we're only using construction template. This is the first step. Second step, we need to save the file in a specific location. So we need to set where we are saving the file. So we're going to go to Browse. You're going to go to your M drive or whatever you want to save your file. And I'm going to create a folder. So Spring 6. And we're going to name it the same name that we have here, week 2. Let's change that to week 3. Week 3 underscore your name and create. So that's the file that I'm saving, and that's the location of the file. Second step, I want to name the project. So the name of my project is the same name, week 3 underscore my name. Okay, so far what I did, I've chosen construction template, set the location of the file, and the name of the project. After we set the location of the file, we set the name of the project. Then we set the start date. This step is very important because it takes several more steps to fix it if we did it wrong. So it's much easier to have it right from the beginning. So having the right start date set when we're creating the project is an important step. Everything can be fixed. So if we ever mess that up, we can go back and change it. But it takes a little bit more steps to set it right. So just if we have it right from the beginning, it will be much easier. And then let's start the start date. What is the start date that we have? Let's look at our project requirements. The start date is 2/1/2022. Yeah, change that over the years to 2022, Feb and 1. 2/1/2022, and then I'm going to create. Okay, so now that's how the interface looks like for ASTA Power Project. We need to know three different views. For now, for today, the most important thing that we learn the different views that we have. What different views that we have? This part of our view is always called the project view. So here is our project view. Okay, then this section is called spreadsheet view. So this is spreadsheet view. Okay, and that section is called Gantt chart view. So these are the three things that we need at least to remember for today: project view, spreadsheet view, and Gantt chart view. So you can see your whole interface, and it's divided into three views, as you can see: project, spreadsheet, and Gantt chart. Okay, and at the top you can see your regular ribbons that you can see in any application like Microsoft Word, file home view. That looks very familiar, and that what makes um, ASTA Power Project as a friendly, user-friendly interface, because you're already familiar with how the interface looks like. And this is your status. That is your status bar. We're going to use that later when we start updating the project. And we're gonna go through the different bars and ribbons and properties along as we work on the product. But only for now, what I need you to know is product view, spreadsheet view, and Gantt chart view. Okay. So far what we did is we created a new construction template. We saved the file in a specific location, named the project file, set a start date. The fifth most important um, step is setting the calendar of the project. So if you go to the project view right here, you're gonna see calendars. Okay, and it's going to show you a set of different calendars that we can choose from. Are we working a 5-day week? Are we working 5.5, 6, or 7? Do we have holidays included in that calendar? We don't have holidays included in this calendar. So a question. Why do you think we need to have an assigned calendar? Why do we need to show or not show holidays? So let me give you an example. Okay. So how do we calculate durations? Durations equal quantity over production rate. Okay, so if you have a specific quantity for a specific material, you divide that by that production rate and you get how many working days. So that duration is working days. So the duration that you get from that equation is quantity over production rate is working days. So let's say the duration that we got is equal 3 working days. Okay, so let's represent that in a bar chart. So I'm gonna say mm, so we're working Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Okay? So that's 3 working days, right? So what if I say we didn't start on Monday? That task actually started on Friday. Can we say Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, these are 3 working days? No, we can't. So what is going to happen now? They're not going to work on Saturday and Sunday. So they're going to work on Friday, they're going to work on Monday, and they're going to work on Tuesday to achieve 3 working days. So if we counted now on the calendar, how many calendar days? So we started work on Friday, but we finished on Tuesday. So if we didn't set our calendar to say there is a Saturday and a Sunday in there that are days off or there are any holidays, it's gonna say that is the finish date of our task. While actually that was the finish date of our task. Okay? So that's just for one task. Imagine that happening in on thousands of tasks. How much do you think the finish date will be shifted now when we don't include all these holidays? Okay? There are some examples when we actually need not to include the holidays. And if you're interested to know that kind of information, which schedules need a calendar with holidays, which schedule doesn't, we can talk about that when we meet next week and tell you what are the occasions that actually that we need to have a calendar with no holidays, or what are the occasions that we need a calendar with holidays. But for now, we need to understand the difference that these are working days and now these are calendar days. Okay, so let's go back to our ASTA project. What is the required calendar? So let's see what calendar we have here. 7-day week with no holidays. So we have a 7-day work week with no holidays. That is the calendar that we need to assign to this specific project. So we're gonna go to calendars. We're gonna choose calendars with no holidays. I'm gonna maximize that. I'm gonna choose 7-day week, no holidays. And then I'm gonna right click, then choose it as our task default. Then you get this message. We wanna choose that calendar to be in all our existing views. So I want to make sure that this is the calendar that's used in all the existing views. So make sure that you check all 3 boxes. And okay, you must check that there is a red tick over here. Okay, so you see a red check. That means this is now the assigned calendar. So before you start adding activities or start working on the schedule, make sure that you have the assigned calendar correct and you can see that red tick over here that this is your calendar or this is the required calendar for this project. Okay, so now we set the start date, we set the calendar. Let's look at the activities that we have in this project. The exercise that we have for today, and these are the tasks that we need to add into our schedule. So what are the 4 pieces of information that we have here? We have activity ID, activity name, duration, and the predecessors for each activity or each task. Okay, we're gonna start by adding each column or each piece of information into the schedule one by one. So first we're gonna start by adding the activity names. Okay, I want to start by adding the activity names. So I'm gonna go back to ASTA. I have my calendar set, I have my project start set. Now I can start adding the activity names. So we have start. So we're gonna add it under the name column, which is the activity name column. Then A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and J, and finish. So now we have our activity names into the schedule. The second step we need to add, we start adding all our durations. Okay, so if you notice, this is zero duration. Why? Because this is a start milestone, this is a finish milestone. And as we talked about last week in our last lab, that milestones are always zero duration tasks. So does that mean we can just leave it blank? No, we need to go and type in zero. Okay, it's gonna show us blank, but when you start seeing those dates, it means now it treats the task as a zero duration task. And if you look at your bar chart view, you now see it marked as a milestone. Once you enter it as a zero duration task, now you can see it as a milestone. Let's start adding the rest of our durations. We have 0, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, and 3, then 8, 7, 5, 6, and 0. Okay, let's have a quick review. So 0, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 8, 1, 7, 5, 6, and 0. Okay, so as you can see, it's changed that 8 days into 1 week, 1 day, and changed that 7 days into 1 week. If you don't want to see weeks in here, you want to change the working unit, we can. So what are we going to do? I'm going to select the duration column. Okay, so I'm selecting the duration column. I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to choose table definition. Okay, under the duration column, so I can see here the duration column, I'm going to go to the attributes of that column. Okay, I want to show the time unit instead of week. I want to show it as day. Okay, so I changed the time unit here from weeks to day. Then I'm go and hit apply. Oh, now you can see it as 8 days and 7 days instead of 1 week and 1 week, 1 day. So we have our activity names in, we have our durations in. Now what we need to do is start adding the predecessors, okay? But there is one more step that we need to do before adding the predecessors. I want to start labeling the bar charts. What does that mean? Now you can see them labeled by some numbers. What are these numbers? These are the line number items. So you can see line item 1, and you can see 1, and you can see 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? Don't mind that the milestone here is going to change when we schedule the project, and you're going to understand what does that schedule mean. So we have the activity, and they have labeled by line items. I want to change that to be labeled by activity names. So let's see how we can do this. I'm going to go anywhere right in here. Just right click anywhere. Right click. I'm going to choose format bar chart. So right click, format bar chart. And then I'm gonna go to task data display. I want to change what data will be displayed next to each bar chart. So instead of line, I want to change that to name. I want to show the activity name. Where can you find it? We find it under identification and name, and apply. Now, next to each bar, you can see it labeled by the activity name. Okay, and you will see how that makes it easier when we're adding the predecessors and reduces the number of errors that we can have when we're assigning the predecessors for each task. So let's start working on the predecessors, okay? We're gonna add the predecessor for each task. So first, does the start milestone have any predecessor? No. The only tasks that don't have a predecessors in any schedule is the start milestone. And the only task that doesn't have any successors is the finish milestone. So the start milestone doesn't have any predecessors. Let's go to task A. And here it said task A has a predecessor as the start. Okay, so I'm gonna go to task A. Okay, gonna select it. See them in black like that. Gonna select it, then I'm gonna double click. Let me double click on task A. You're gonna see that window, okay, and some tabs on the top. I'm gonna choose the links tab. I'm gonna choose the links tab. Now you can see it divided into two sections. There is one section here for the predecessor, and there is one section here for the successor. What information is given to us? We're given the predecessors, right? So everything that we're gonna be entering under the predecessor section. We're not adding any successors. Why? Because the information we have here is predecessors. So we're gonna always be adding in this exercise under the predecessor section. So when we add link, we're gonna add it under the predecessor section and not under the successor section. Okay, so let's start. The predecessor of activity A is start, so I'm gonna go add link. I have the option to choose the task either by the activity name or by the unique task ID. I don't need to add both. I just type one of them. So I know the activity name as start. Okay. The link type is finished to start. We don't have a different link type for now. We don't have any lag, and so we're gonna link. So now we can see that the task properties for task A, I'm double checking which task is that task A, the predecessor is start. Let's move on to the next task. Let's go to B. So let's just select B. Now we can just select. And we want to add a predecessor for task B. The predecessor for task B is A. So we're gonna add, go here, add link. I'm gonna choose task A as the predecessor. Link type is the same, no lag, and link. So I've added task A as the predecessor. How? I clicked on add link and I've chosen task A as the predecessor. Okay, let's move on to the next task. Task C. The predecessor of task C is B. I'm gonna go again under the predecessor section, add link. I'm gonna make sure that I'm linking to C, and I'm gonna type the predecessor of task C is B and link. So now we have B. Let's move on to D. The predecessor of task D is A. I'm gonna add link. I'm gonna type A. Let's move on to E. Now we have three different predecessors to task E. So we have C, D, and F. So let's see how we're gonna add this. I'm gonna go to the same step, make sure that I'm choosing task E. I'm double checking by seeing its properties for E right here. So I'll make sure that I'm on the right task. Do the same step, add link, and then I'm gonna type C, comma, D, comma, F. Predecessors are C, D, and F. Why did I add them in just one step? like that, C, D, and F, because they're all having the same link type, which is finish to start. Next week, when we start having different link types, we're gonna add that differently. Okay, but for now, because they have the same link type, we're gonna add it this way. We're gonna add the first one, comma, second, comma, third. Okay, and I'm gonna click link. It's gonna double check which tasks do you want to link that as a predecessor. So I'm gonna select C, D, and F. Okay, so now I have the 3 predecessors for task E. Then I'm gonna move to task F. The predecessor for task F is B, link B. The predecessor for task G is E. I'm gonna go add link and on to the next one, doing the same thing. What is the predecessor of H? It's task F. I'm gonna go back under predecessor, add link, and F. Go to task I. The predecessor for task I is H. Go back, add link, and H. Task J, the predecessor for J is G and I. So we have 2 predecessors. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to add link under the predecessor. We're going to write G, comma, I. We have 2 predecessors. We're going to add G, comma, I. And link. It's going to give us the same window again. So we're going to select G and I. These are the 2 tasks we want to link. So now they are the predecessors of J. Moving on to our last task is finish. I was just double checking that the recording was on. So let's go to finish. The predecessors for finish are J and H. Okay. So go again under the predecessor section, add link J and H. J, comma, H. Okay. Again, select both and okay. Now we're done adding everything. I'm just gonna close that. So as you can see, we added all the links, right? But why are they still all starting at the same time? Because there's one more step missing. It's the last step that we always do after we add sequence, change sequence, add duration, or change duration. So any change to the duration or any changes to the sequence or the logic or the predecessors, we need to do one more step. This step is called scheduling the project. We're basically saying start calculating all the durations and links that we added and start calculating the forward pass and the backward pass. How do we do this? We go to our keyboard and we hit F9. So F9 on the keyboard. F9, function 9. Okay, you're gonna be promoted to this window, and we're gonna make sure that the report date that we have here is the same as our start date. And then we're gonna click OK. What that basically does is it starts calculating our forward and backward pass. Okay, so anytime you do a change to the duration of any task, or anytime you change the logic, you always add schedule or F9. Why? Because your changes will not be reflected into the schedule unless you hit F9. It's basically saying the software start calculating the numbers that we have. Okay, now you can see the sequence. Now you can see when they're started. Now you can see actually which are the critical tasks that we have, which are the non-critical tasks that we have. Okay. So what if I want to double check that I have the correct values and correct CPM? I'm gonna highlight from the line column. So I'm gonna go to the line column like that. I'm gonna select from the line column. Okay, so I'm not selecting this way. I'm selecting from the line column from here. So make sure you're not selecting from the task, you're selecting from the line column. And then under home, we have an option called summarize tasks. It's basically creating now a WBS structure. I want to add a WBS. I'm going to type in the name of the project, which we have is week 3. Okay, so that's week 3 exercise. But did we add everything that we needed? Did we add all the pieces of information that we had to? Let's go back. So we have activity ID. We didn't add these activity IDs, right? So we need to add them. How are we going to do that? Each time you need to add something into the schedule, one piece of information into the schedule, you need to have the required column for that. So if you want to view something in the schedule or you want to add something into the schedule, we always use columns. Okay. So when we added the duration, we used the name column. When we added the activity names, we used the name column. When we added the durations, we added the duration column. The start and finish column, we don't do that manually. We don't enter any dates in here manually. Okay. These are based on the CPM calculations when you enter the predecessors and the successors and the durations. Okay. So what I want to do now is I want to add a column for activity ID. How I'm going to do this? I'm going to select the column, just select the column, right click, okay, and then we can go to table definition. I want to add a new column. This is the new column I'm going to change that, okay. Under identification, I'm going to go to unique task ID. Okay. So we're not selecting task ID or task ID WBN. We're not selecting those. We're only selecting unique task ID. Again, we are not selecting task ID. We are only selecting unique task ID. Okay. And I want to have it before the activity name. So this is the order of the columns. So I'm just going to move that before activity name and apply. So now we have that unique task ID column, okay? But do you see the activity IDs that we have here matching with the required activity IDs here? No, they don't. And we need to match them. That's how our activity IDs need to look like, okay? So how are we going to do this? You have two options. Either you go just in manually and type in AA01 and do the same for each. But you think that would be feasible if you have 500 activities in your project, 1,000, 2,000 activities in your project, which is something common, and all schedules have, or complex projects would have like thousands of tasks in their schedule. Would that be available? So always when you think there is something, or always when you see there is something that is repetitive that you need to do it several times, always know that there is another option. There is always another option. Okay, so what are we going to do to change that? Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select again from the line column. Okay, I'm going to select all the activities that I want to change their task ID. Okay, so I'm not selecting the WBS as well. No, I'm just selecting the activity. Okay, Then I'm go to unique task ID, unique task ID renumbering. I'm gonna set the prefix as 1, as A, and the numeric value as 001. Why? Because that's how my activity ID looks like. It starts with the prefix A, the numeric value it has 001, and then it keeps increasing by 1. So each activity ID has an increment of 1. And I'm going to choose the scope as selection. Why? Because I want to only change the selected tasks and apply. As you can see here, they all changed in one step. Okay. So what I want you to do now, I want you to double check that you have the same total duration, 26 days. Okay. So what if that duration was not correct? Okay. So we have some checks that we can do to find where did we go wrong. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to right click. So I can remove that selection now. I'm just going to right click here. I'm going to go to add column. I want add an extra column to double check my predecessors. Okay. So I'm going to go to add column, logic. Then I'm going to show the predecessors. Okay. So again, what did I do? Right click here, add column, logic, then predecessors. Right. So now I can see what is the predecessor of each task. And if it was wrong, I can just change it from here. I can change it to G, change it to A. So I can change the predecessors just by selecting this. Okay. So I'm double checking everything is right, then I'm good. So if you did any changes to the predecessors here, you need to go back and click F9 to recalculate the changes that you did. Okay. Okay, so what if your predecessors are right, but still you don't have that 26 days duration? So you need to double check your durations. Make sure that you didn't miss any duration or you have any duration wrong in here. Okay, so what if you, again, double check that and still you don't have 26 days in here? There is one more check. Again, we're going to check by adding another column. I'm going to go in here, that open space, right click, add column, and then under date, I'm going to choose calendar. Okay, so I'm double checking that all the tasks, including the WBS, have a 7-day week, no holidays calendar. Okay, so I'm double checking that all the tasks have a 7-day week, no holidays. If anything was wrong, you can just pull down the drop down menu and just change the calendar to the correct calendar, which we have is 7-day week, no holidays. Okay, so these are some checks to make sure that we have the correct final total duration, which is 26 days. Okay. So what we need to do now, there's another check we need to do here as well. We're going to go to the date zones. So that part, that section here where we see the time scale is called the date zones. Okay. If we need to do another check that the calendar is correct on the date zone, I'm going to right click, I'm going to stand here on the time scale or the date zone, right click, properties, and I want to make sure that the folding calendar is the same calendar. Okay, so the folding calendar is 7-day week, no holidays. So I'm double checking that everything I have is correct. So the folding calendar is the same calendar assigned, or as the same as the default calendar that we set. Okay, so now we have everything right. We have the correct calendar, we have the correct predecessors. Now, what else do we need to do? We need to add some columns. Okay, so there are columns that we need to add. Why? Because that is what is required in our exercise. We need to show the activity ID. We already did that. We need to show the name, duration, start and finish, predecessor. Okay, so we added the predecessor. We need to add the successor as well. Okay, you can go here, just add column. So again, just right click, add column, under logic, add successors. So you have your successor for each task. So each time you need to add a column, you just go right click, add column, right click, add column. Okay, depends on what column do you need to add. What more do we need to add? We need to show the total float and the free float. We already added the calendar, so we need to show the total float and free float. So there you go, add column. Under float, we're gonna show total float, and we can add from here as well. So if you add, I can show you the free float, and you can start changing how their order or their sequence by moving the columns around. So I'm gonna have put that down, put the predecessors, have the total float. So I want to make sure that I have all the required columns. And this is very important as well for your upcoming homeworks. You would always have a specific set of columns that you need to show. And if you didn't, you have a rubric for that. So you're going to be penalized if you don't show the columns required in your homework. Okay, I'm going to click. So what else? Let's go back to our requirements. What else do we need to show? It has some specifics to what we need to show on our date zone. So we were just talking about the date zone. What do we need to show? We need to show the year, month, week, start, day, date, elapsed unit, and working units. How can we show that different time scales on our date zone? So we're gonna go here. As we said, this is our date zone, correct? So we want to make sure that we're setting the date zones required. So each exercise, each homework will not have the same exact required date zones. Okay, so you need to check what are the date zones required, and then you go to that section here, go to the time scale or the date zone, right click, then you have the option to insert line. It gives you all the time scale options that you can add. Okay, so you start adding all the required ones. You start adding year. We have that already. Month, we have that. And if you want to know which one is that, this is the week start. If you just hover around the time scale, it can tell you which time scale is that. This is the elapsed unit. This is the week start. So what is missing? We need to add day, date, and working units. So I'm going to go right click, insert line, days, and date, and working units. And you can just move them around as much as you want. If you want to zoom in, zoom out, you just click on your keyboard and move them around if you want to zoom in or zoom out, your time scale. And you can move the time scale up and down how you want to order them. Just select it and you see that blue bar, you just move it up and down. So you click on that with your mouse and move it up or down. Okay, so that's how we set our date zones. Then also we have a specific requirement So we added to the left, we added the name, right? We needed that when we were adding the predecessors. We wanted to make sure that we can see the name of the task to avoid any errors when we're adding the predecessors. But we do have some more requirements here. On the right, we need to show the unique task ID. So if you remember how we did add these activity names, labels to each bar, we're going to do the same step again. I'm going to go anywhere in here on my bar chart view, right click, format bar chart. I have name, which is correct, but I'm on the right, I want to add the unique task ID. Okay, so under identification, I'm gonna go to not task ID, I'm gonna go to unique task ID. Unique task ID and apply. So now for each task, you can see on the left, you have the activity name, and on the right, you have the unique task ID. Okay, and then you can see that for activities that have float, if you go to the format tab on the top here, there's something here called some display switches. It basically shows or hides some features to the Gantt chart. Okay, if you go to the first two, you can and you hover around them, it's gonna turn the display off, free float on and off. So if I want to show free float, if I want to show hide the free float, I can select that. I want to hide or show the total float. As you can see, that was hiding. So if you hide the total float, show the total float. Okay, and this to show or hide the critical path. So if you want to show or hide your critical path. Okay, we're gonna go a lot more into the different display switches here as we move along through the semester, depends on what we need in each exercise. But for now, we want to show the total float, free float, and the critical path. Okay, so make sure that you have them all selected. Okay, then just save the file, okay, and make sure that you upload that into InLab exercise 3. I'm also gonna record another video or another recording for project 1. Well, I know we already covered that in the lab last week, but I'm gonna go into more details of what are the exact deliverables you need to submit. So by now you should have went through your drawings, know what is exactly your scope, start to have an idea how you're gonna break down your work, what is your breakdown structure, and have an idea how your activity list is gonna look like, okay? And in the next recording, I'm gonna add as well how are you graded, what are the exact deliverables you need to submit, and what is the weight of each of these deliverables. Okay, so please go through the recording, start working on the in-lab exercise, and if you have any problems at all, even if it's something minor, even if it's something you think is silly, no, it's not. Ask as much as questions, and if you have any problem, you're stuck in even one step, make sure that you ask the questions, okay? And as I said in our last lab, I'm gonna compile all the feedback that I had from last semester, all the advice that the previous semester students gave to you. And again, one of the most common thing that was repeated along their feedback is ask questions and attend the labs. So please ask questions, okay? Even if you're stuck on something that seems minor, it's gonna add up, okay? So make sure that by the end of each lab, you know exactly what we're doing. You don't have any questions, you don't have any confusions. I can repeat the same thing as many times as you want. And if you have any questions for this specific lab because it's recorded, I'm gonna have office hours, okay? You can come through both my office hours on Thursday and Friday, and I think I'm also gonna be adding an extra office hours this week. So if you have any problems, you can come and ask whatever questions you have. Thank you so much and have a great day.